In this one, we're going to look at another one of those little portable little ghetto blasters, which really isn't worth fixing, but this is kind of a small one. AM/FM cassette, little Sanyo one, old as the hills, doesn't work, and it's just one that we use here for we take it outside, listen to it outside and on the patio and stuff. So it, just we use it as radio mostly. Let's take a look at it. This is a little Sanyo blaster. This is a model M7015 AM/FM cassette. And we're going to check this one out today and see whether it works, whether we can make it work. So we'll try the radio function first. Radio appears to work. Volume control is very bad. AM.
About 40%. All other radio.
Again, it works.
Under 50.
The tape player, on the other hand, doesn't do anything. Now you might wonder why anybody would want something like this. Well, I guess if you're using it in a garage or something just to listen to the radio, or you have the odd cassette tape that you want to listen to and you don't have a need for a hi-fi system, something like this might just be all that is needed. Anyway, we're going to look at this, see whether this can be made to work, and give it a second life. Otherwise it just gets turfed like everything else. If the tape deck can be made to work, it can be useful. Let's open this thing up. Now, of course, it's going to have some screws, obviously, in the back through the battery compartment. Looks like this thing took, what, 4 batteries? 4 D cell batteries, which is nice. The ones that took the large D cell batteries were actually quite nice because, of course, D cell batteries hold a lot of energy. So something like this being used as a portable radio, as a radio, it's going to run for a long time on a set of batteries. None of this AA crap where you get a couple of hours of play. 4D batteries, when this thing would probably run a radio like this for a month or so of normal listening. Okay, the screws removed. We'll open up the cassette compartment because generally that's part of the front panel. It's going to come off. If you don't open it, you'll risk breaking the catch. Now, I didn't expect there to be plugs to plug the speakers in because that would have added cost. And of course, Sanyo wasn't a high-end brand. They're actually pretty cheap. So adding that extra cost of putting a plug on the speakers would just make this thing cost prohibitive. But at least they left us enough. Probably just untie that. Look at that. They just tie it with a little piece of tubing. That way we get a little more slack on the wires. Not much. Okay, there wasn't really any more slack. It was just a way of tying the wires up because the FM stereo light, the wire is quite short. But now we can at least see the mechanism and see why it is or is not working. Controls are easy to get at, to clean. Let's see if the motor is going to turn over on this thing. Now, I fully expected that the belt was going to be shot on here, but the belt is actually not shot. When I turn on the power, though, well, it might help if I plug the power cord back in. Okay, radio works. Oh, look, when I first switch it to tape, it moves momentarily and then stops. So, gee, I wonder what the problem could be there. We'll verify that there is no power getting to the motor. Which is only 1 volt. Little low. should have a lot more power than that. Any ideas, anyone? Any ideas what it might be? Maybe a switch. There may be a leaf switch on this mechanism that applies power to the motor. So let's just pull the chassis out. Never been out. All the paint seals are still intact on this. See what I mean? And you can tell this is the cheapest of the cheap for cassette recorders, because for erasing the tape, it's just a permanent magnet that gets swung down by a lever when you put it into record mode. Where's the record button? There, that's record, you see. Has the little latch for the safety tab on the cassette. The cassette has has the tab broken off. It won't go into a record, but with the tab in place, it'll go into record, and then that snaps into place to erase your tapes. Okay, now this thing should lift up to reveal a very, very cheap mechanism. And there is a switch here, and it's got these green wires on it. And I'm curious as to whether that switch is the fault, because it should be running now. I'll just short the wires here. Ah, look, now it runs. We have a bad switch. But I can see that the switch contacts are actually being made. Therefore, it's the switch contacts themselves are pitted or something. We'll try some cleaner on here and see whether just putting some cleaner on those contacts will fix it. We'll use some Dioxin D100, the stuff, just because I don't feel like wasting a spray can. And we have access to the actual contact itself. So we'll see whether this will actually fix these. I'll give you an idea how good this cleaner is. So let's get a drop. And we'll put a drop down there through the switch. And activate the switch a few times to see if it will start to work. Oh, getting there. Getting there. Look at that. I tell you, that Dioxin is just magic. Say what you want about Dioxin, but you know, you just saw it for yourself. I did nothing other than put a drop of Dioxin on those contacts that had all oxidated, and now this motor is running. These belts probably don't have a lot of tension because they've been sitting for forever. This one here especially doesn't look like it's got a lot of torque. But we'll see. We'll just try loading a tape. I haven't put the screws in yet. I just want to see whether it's going to fast forward and rewind. So let's fast forward without changing any belts, right? Rewind. No, we don't have enough torque. How about play? Will it play? Whoa, 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 whoa. You can hear the wow and flutter from this thing because it's been sitting so long. The belt has got a flat spot, and you can hear it every time the belt, you can see the belt moving. So I think at the very least I should change those belts out. I'm sure I probably have. I've got a bunch of belts that I bought off of eBay, which are all kinds of oddball sizes. Maybe this is going to use one of the oddball sizes. Let me go grab my belt kit, and we'll see if I can find some belts that will work in this thing so that the fast forward and rewind will work. Before I do that though, let's clean up this control down here. I'm just going to use this good old D100 Dioxin because this control is an open control. So I can get in here and just give it a drop directly, and that I don't have to waste my expensive spray stuff. So the contacts are on the bottom of this thing, so if I just put a drop on here and work the control back and forth, that should clean this primitive control. At least I put the contacts on the bottom side where dust isn't going to get into it. My power cord is not tight. I bet that is. Sounds like there's a bit of dirt down at the bottom end, so we'll just put a bit more down here. You guys can see it or not. My power cord's coming loose. That sounded a little better. Okay, let's find a belt for this thing. So the belts come off pretty easy. There's one. The other one loops underneath like that. Pretty easy to take these belts out on this thing. Of course, it's making a liar out of me now because this one's kind of hung up on this side, but we'll get it out of there, no problem. Like that. Okay, let's see if I can find something relatively similar but smaller than these two. This is my eBay purchase for like 35 different belts for, I think it was like $5 or something. But out of these 35 belts, it took like 2 months to get here. None of them seem to be the right size. I've got a couple that might be okay. So we'll try these ones and just see whether it improves it or not. They look to be about the same size as the other ones. I was hoping to find some that were a smidge smaller, but I don't know that that's going to happen. But that one seems to have a little more grip than the other. And this one here for the capstan. And we'll see whether these ones provide any more torque than the original ones. So we'll just pop this unit back in. Now remember, the original one would not rewind the tape at all because it was so loose. So we'll just kind of set the chassis back in place here and apply power and put the tape back in and see whether it rewinds. If it does rewind this time, then we'll know that this belt is probably the right one. So there's the radio. Okay, so where's our controls here? Fast forward was that one. Oh, nope, not going to fast forward. Or rewind. Oh, there's fast forward. Now which one's slipping? It's the the capsule one's turning okay. In fact, it's got lots of torque. It's the other one, the real drive, which is the one I was concerned about because the take-up supply belt really didn't it didn't look to be any tighter than the original one. That's this one here. And as you can see, when you change modes, it moves. So when you go to rewind, it moves that way. And when you go to fast forward, it moves that way. And play, it moves the same. So play, I think that's rewind. And that's fast forward, so it actually changes the tension slightly on it. But that one there, when I pulled this one out of the belt bin, it looked to be about the same size as the original one, which is that one. I don't think I got them mixed up. So I guess we'll have to try boiling this belt and see whether that will give me enough tension to make this thing work. These are the original belts, the two belts that originally came out of the unit. I boiled them on my 1200 watt microwave for 10 minutes. I'm just going to let the belts dry for a bit, and then we'll put them back in and we'll see how much of a performance increase we've created. You notice that this belt here has now gone back to being round, whereas it was oval shaped before because it had been on those pulleys for how many years without moving. Both belts have returned to the normal shape, and they're actually a little smaller than they were before. Oops. Not around the pulley. There, that's a bit better. Nope, not around the pulley. Gotta get it around the inside of the pulley there. That's a bit better. And same with this one. Okay, now let's see whether we have any more torque. Same situation. Same tape. Fast forward. Rewind. Stupid powers come off. Rewind. Definitely, it works. And where's my play? Pause off, play. And the wild flutter's gone too. Okay, that just proves that boiling your belts, once again, will fix them in most cases. Or in a lot of cases. It won't do it 100% of the time, but most of the time, boiling your belts will tighten them up enough that you can use them. And if you don't have a replacement, as long as the belt hasn't melted, right? If the belts that have melted, it's not going to do anything for them. But if they haven't melted, if they've just become stretched, boiling them a lot of times will solve the problem, as is done again on this, which is fine because I didn't want to spend any money on this thing anyway. I just wanted to get it going as quickly and cheaply as absolute possible because this thing's not worth anything, but it's certainly worth more now than it was when I started this, because when I first started, of course, it wouldn't play a tape. And it wouldn't fast forward and rewind. In fact, the motor wouldn't come on at all, and the volume control and so forth was all scratchy and noisy. So now, at least it's usable. I tell you, today at work, I had a good laugh at work today. I get to a job and there's no drop. I was doing a fiber install. Now, the drop work is done by a different crew. And it's contracted out. That was so that when we show up on the job site, the actual drop is already in place. The fiber drop is in place, and if the conduit needed to be put in, that was all done before we got there, or aerial fiber is hung. So I mean, we do it ourselves, or we did, but since the work was all contracted out to another company to do our work for us, that's what they're paid to do. Now, quite often when I show up at the scene and the contractors haven't done the work, I get my ladder out off my truck, I go up the pole and put the drop wire up myself, hang it to the pole, hang it to the midspan, over to the house, down the house, put everything on. But today I show up and there's no drop. I'm just going to start working on putting in the drop, and a truck shows up and it's the contract company. And apparently, I guess what had happened was they put the drop to the wrong house. They were there the other day, and what had happened was another tech had gone out there and found there was no drop, and he got on his computer and did what I'm supposed to do. We fill out a form, and it goes back to the contract company that was supposed to put the drop wire in place, and they send a crew out to do it, and then it comes back to us to go and do the inside work, install the equipment, set everything up. So this is what had happened was the last guy that was there found there was no drop, so he sent the paperwork off, and the drop guys from another company come out and they put the drop to the wrong house. Okay, I get there and it's not going where it's supposed to. So I was all prepared to go do it myself. All I have to do is run back to the warehouse and pick up some fiber and come back, which, I mean, it's going to take time. It's going to waste a bunch of my time because I don't normally carry it with me. And all of a sudden, 2 trucks show up. And one of them is a supervisor for the other company. And then these 2 guys show up in another truck. And I say, hey, how's it going? I said, are you here to do the drop? Oh, yes, we're here to do the drop. And I tell you, okay, well, I'll just sit back and wait and talk to the customer and just go in the house and see what needs to be done inside the house, right? See what work I'm going to have to do. Because I get the fun stuff. I'm the one that's going to have to fish everything in and do all the inside work, right? Get in the attic and do all that type of stuff. The outside crew, they just hang the drop wire, hang the drop fiber from the pole to the house and terminate it in a box, and I take over from there. So, okay, I'll go and see what I need to do. So I come out, these guys are setting up their ladder, and I tell you, I just shook my head. It took 2 of them to put a ladder up, and one guy goes up the ladder while the next guy stands on the ground and holds the ladder for him. It was almost comical. I should have taken my camera out and filmed this because, you know, it was funny. It was just to watch these 2 fellas try to do this work, and it took them so long to do it. As I was saying to the customer after, I said, I could have done that myself in half the amount of time these 2 clowns took to do it. I mean, it was comical to watch these 2 fellas do the job. I mean, in the end, they got it done right, but it was just to watch them work. It was kind of humorous to watch these 2 guys go to town to hang this drop. So now the unit's back together. We'll try it out. Really good sound on this thing, as you can hear.
Free sign up.
My test transmitter.
Clear.
and then down FM, down there. FM mono, FM stereo, tape. Let's see how well the tape works now that it's all back together. Load the tape, press play. There's the tape playing. Fast forward. Rewind. Rewinding like a champ. I'm not going to bother testing the record feature on this because we know how well something like this is going to record. It's going to record like crap. But I'm sure it will record, but we're not going to test it. Something like this, the record would never be used on it. It'd just be used for playback anyway. Anyway, that's all there is to this little piece of junk. And totally not worth my time, but I was bored. Okay, that's it. That's another one saved from the scrap heap. All it took to fix this was, a couple kilowatts of energy to run my microwave oven for 10 minutes to boil the belts. Remember that? Boiling the belts. It will save more machines than it won't, unless your belts are all melted, and then you got to change them. But nothing into this to fix it, and it will work for years. I've been doing the boiled belt trick now for almost 30 years, and I've done it on my own equipment, and I've got equipment that I did it with 10 years ago, and those belts are still working. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one real soon.